much for attending this online event, and why it's special and what's so different is I'm going to be doing what I do when you come for a crystal seeing one-on-one, but online. But instead of having it be like the morning TV show broadcast of me doing this thing, I wanted instead to acknowledge that the information or energy is taking a different path, and it's using these machines and showing us something different from what we see in the room, but giving us enough information that we can sort of be there in our minds. And this is the first time that a crystal seeing has taken place as a collective online using digital electronic transmission. And each one of you is coming with your own questions, with your own energy as yourselves. And we all meet here in this one place for the seeing. And my aim here is not to read any individual in our group, but to read the collective, because we're going through something that's going to be known about our time epochs from now. So we're living the interesting life, but we are all afraid. This is a science fiction level of unknowing that we are having to live through while keeping our asses from catching on fire. And we're seeing all of our human frailties at their deepest, manifesting out there in the streets and in the governments. So we introduce the virus to this, and it's a threat to each one of us. A threat to our family, a threat to our way of life, a threat to our own lives. And it's really out there, like it's not a movie. So we're all in this highly agitated energy state, no matter how we're taking it. You know, some people don't mind global quarantine, pandemic. Pardon me. And then some people, extroverts or people who are separated from their loved ones or need care and aren't getting it, those people are living a hell. And so we're all approaching this from our different perspectives. And when I do a crystal seeing, I go into a meditation. And in that meditation, I let go of any of the stories that I'm telling myself about my life. Who I am, what are my relationships, what do I do, what do I want, what did I forget to do? All of those big and little stories, I just float up above them and access or open my eyes to, my inner eyes to a light, an energy. And meditation is key for me to remember that above even the kind of thing that we're experiencing now, we have a personal energy. We have power in our own lives. We are protected and safer than we know because of what our essential energy is. And that energy is a collective. It's a communal. It's a one that's comprised of all the individual parts of itself. And what this gives me is a feeling of safety and of experience of life enough to turn my chaotic energy, my fear, which doesn't go away, but turns it from something that overtakes my mind and turns into the program of how I view everything. How to not hop on that fear energy and to stay on an energy that is described a million ways and never entirely properly, but one's life energy, one's soul, one's spirit. And as a collective, since everything that's going on and happening in humanity is also reverberating in everyone's mind. And it is this force of collective thought that creates how we see and what we do. And when we can, as individuals, change our own energy, and helpful in smaller groups, like any size, you know, I mean, even religions talk about this, right? People gather. So when we do it together, this too is a contagion. So the virus is operating on a system of contagion, which is the direct result of contact or proximity. And when we can become light inside ourselves, we can light a little bit of this web. And there are a lot of people on the planet doing a lot of intentional light giving. And I'm not talking about creating some sort of crackpot miracle. I'm just talking about how to feel better in your own life. And if you need to justify it otherwise, then it helps other people. Today in the seeing, I am going to be using my crystal ball that I always use. This is a quartz crystal. To go into a meditation with you online, I'll guide us through. This is not a deep and hairy meditation. This is just to help you remember what day it is and what chair you're sitting in. And we will together look at the images and the shadows and the light play that are created in this quartz, which is this is mined out of the earth. This is quartz crystal. It grows in mathematical formulations, but then it also has fissures and has things happening on the inside of it based on whatever's going on geologically around it. And I use the crystal to suggest kind of like clouds in the sky, pictures to me in this state of meditation that causes me to talk too long in the introduction. Suggest pictures to me, and then I just intuitively spit out whatever I see. And I'm just going to invite you to join me in a meditation about the questions that you have in your mind about your life at this moment, our COVID moment. I'm in my studio in downtown Chicago on this beautiful day with the windows open, so we have some factory sounds behind me. I like it. When I meditate, I use a crystal tone bowl that I'm going to ring and take a moment to take a couple of breaths, and I hope you'll join me in that. And when I come back, we together we'll be looking at this crystal in different lights with just questions in our mind. And also, please remember the positives. We are all thinking, what is my new life going to be? What's important? What did I neglect to create before that I am definitely going to create as soon as possible? I'll ring the bowl now. And if you'll take a couple breaths and just let the questions be and just look and allow whatever thoughts come. Some of them are kind of intense. We are reminded of our inner spark of creativity, life creativity, whether or not you're an artist. The desire to bring something into being and experience it as real. And we remember some of our accomplishments personally, each of us, in that way. We see now on our pathway the entrance to a tunnel, and we see two sets of tracks going through the same opening. And we choose based on either love or fear. Fear is an absence, just like shadow is an absence of light. Like all you need to get rid of one is some light. Fear is an absence of love. And love is such a supercharged and even unctuous sort of a word. But it's a word that I think here is describing a feeling of wellness and sameness and interconnectivity with others. And we're reminded in our lives of love because we are under quarantine with our loved ones. And it is really hard to remember love in a situation like that. And we have now learned enough about love through loss and distance and impossibility. And we are ready to learn about love as it comes through that inner creative spark. And so what are we going to make next? What are we going to do? And what we do, because there isn't a we outside of every one of us. So what we do does count. What we do with our lives, our personal lives, is part of what we create next in this seriously strange experience. The speed at which the mind is going in this experience we're having, and how we're talking about it, and how we're explaining it and understanding it, and then misunderstanding it, has gotten the mind moving super fast. And it's become easy for it to slip into the fear track. And we're at the crystal today to take a deep breath and be reminded that fear is merely the absence of love. All we have to do is just connect with a loved one in any way. Connect with a loved one, connect with people through love. And when we make decisions, we ask, what is loving? What is the loving thing to do? And this is loving to the self as well. It is important that we love ourselves because we truly cannot see anything outside of ourselves. How we see is made out of our seeing ability. And if we don't love ourselves, we cannot see loving others or having others love us. And so I know that this idea that one should love oneself can be so off-putting. It's simply a matter of honoring your own intuition about yourself, honoring your feelings about things, whether they make sense or not. And really just being yourself. Be the self in light. That's the seeing. be the self in light. And we reflect also into the world that we make as a group, the hospitals and the supply chains and the every last thing that we go to, so that we don't have to live in the woods. All of those things are made out of people, individuals, and now individuals and machines together. What do we desire to create there? What do we need to have in place in our world, and how do we add what we have to give? And so in this time of COVID, we're urged to reflect on the self. Remember who you are. We take a deep breath. And another. We slowly open our eyes, blink back into the machine. Thanks for being here. At this time, in our second part, I would like to open up for discussion. Anything that you might have experienced in the meditation or thought, or about seeing your experience looking into the crystal, what you saw, and just voluntarily. We are slated to go for a half an hour. If we get longer, because I have other stones here we can look into and through, in the case of that one. So Tricia, how will we manage allowing people to speak up?
Tricia, you're muted.
Sorry, I've just unmuted. Thank you, Dana. That was beautiful and much needed. I think what we were going to do is have everyone introduce themselves as they speak, if they have a question. And we were going to have them say one word that they felt, maybe before and after, if those words changed. And then when you respond, or ask someone else to call on someone else to introduce themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I will call, Joe is next to me. So, and if
Hi,
you don't.
Okay. I'm Joe Jensen. I don't know how much I should tell about myself, basically. I'm a friend of Dana's. We've worked on artistic projects together. COVID, one word, pause. Oh, and Douglas,
Are we there?
I'd like Douglas to do an introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name's Doug, and my word at the start of this was frustration. I think that's the meditation has helped alleviate some of that, but that's just a general course of energy that runs through my day-to-day life. If I were to follow it up, so it'd be with revenge fantasies added with that frustration towards certain people in power. But that is a real part of, the feelings these days for me. Check. Arabella, would you like to go next? Hi.
I'm quarantined in Maryland. Let me see if I can show you a little bit up there. It's really beautiful. So it's really funny because, like, before I came on, like I was like, well, I don't really have that many fears around COVID in a way, like in terms of how it might affect us personally. It's not like, it's not gonna change, like it doesn't endanger, my life very much, my way of life. But it was really weird because when we started, I realized I have real anguish around it, and I can't really, like, I pin it to something. I think it's more about like the whole situation. I feel very much like that I don't want to go back to the world we came from. There's so much that I like about this, like lower key, and people are working.
So true.
And so I really hate the idea of going, I live in New York City, so usually, and so, it's so intense there. And so so there's that, like, I'm like, are people gonna see that we don't need to buy so much stuff, make so much stuff, drive so much? I doubt it. And then I'm also really worried that, that the poor are gonna be poorer after this. I really worry about that. Like, I love our community in Brooklyn, and we live in an African Caribbean neighborhood, and that's just devastated. Like, many are nurses, many work in hospitals, and also they seem to just be less resistant, or I don't know, but like so many people have died in that community. It's really, really upsetting. So yeah, that's where I am. So, like, I would say I did love, like, the thing about self-love. I think that's really great, like, just to ground ourselves there and go, well, that's where I can start from, and I can start by loving myself, and then that allows me to bring positive stuff to the world. And by the way, I write rather than do art, can you tell? Now I'll shut up. It's lovely to meet you all.
Thank you. We'll continue our discussion. It's great to be meeting you guys. Oh, yeah, I think you should hot potato someone.
Yes, I would love to have Rebecca present herself.
Hi, should I turn my video on?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see me? I totally can't see myself anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm a grad student. I graduate on Sunday.
Congrats.
Thanks. So it's all totally different than I expected with COVID. But I think, you know, COVID has made me think about like other stuff that's happened in my life. And I feel like we ought to be prepared for the quite unexpected in the future instead of assuming it's not going to happen. So that's, I feel like, what I got out of COVID for the moment. And also, you know, one of the guy that has his art studio next to mine, he's very much like go with the flow. And I'm all like, take charge of your own future. So just that idea of like, we need to pick what we want to do, but it's okay if it doesn't go the way that we think. And so thinking about, the kind of hopefulness for the future, and learning to live with ambiguity.
Yeah.
And learning to live with change.
Yeah.
You know, because change is the only thing that is happening consistently. And so getting good at change is probably a better investment than getting good at one or the other particular thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to hot potato somebody for their introduction?
Sure. Maybe if Zach.
Okay. Hi. First time Zooming, so I hope everybody hears me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to find one word. Cut off, maybe. But also, it's not my first rodeo. I've been homeless before, and I'm still at risk. But I live with 3 people, and I don't know, during this period, maybe people have had a chance to pull back from their bubbles, the bubbles they had out there, outside. And now we're getting to know our families and stuff better, you know, our immediate families. Yeah, it's hard to believe. It really is. Not having jets flying over all the time. Quietness is beautiful. No. I wonder if the sky is getting clearer, like less pollution, so we might have a lot more sunlight, maybe warmer weather. I mean,
Evidently, it is. Evidently, the environment is doing some cleaning. Actually,
Yeah.
I have a teenager who's doing a report about it for online school at the moment.
Yeah, well, without the jets stirring everything up, there's one point, you know, it's also given me a lot of time to really try to change some things about myself in this period, where if I was working, going back and forth, it would chop it up. So this is giving me more time to really, try to find change. But I'm also kind of surprised at times at how many people are really scared. I guess I wasn't scared. I'm like, basically, if I die, I die, and I go up to heaven, and I'm not worried anymore. So let's see, switch off to something else real quick. With my art, one thing I like to do with it, or think about it, is it's crystallizing time in this period. I can look at pieces and know what was going on at that time. That's one thing art does, is makes things for the future to see. And it's just, yeah, I'm kind of stumbling here. During the meditation, I was looking at the crystal ball, and I was thinking how it's like white noise for the eyes. There's nothing to focus on, yet everything to focus on, so your mind relaxes. And I do that a lot with my sea glass that was looking at during the whole thing. Bubbles and stuff in there. But yeah, this is a strange time. Somebody said interesting times, the old Chinese.
That's what I was trying to think of in the intro lecture, and it just wouldn't rise up.
Yeah.
So, you know, what you said about the crystal is worse like white noise, where there's nothing to see and you can see anything in it, or whatever your words were. This is really how the crystal works. There's the way that I'm practicing here, using these stones. I do believe that they have mysterious energies, and no one is allowed to disagree, since they're integral in the part of radio technology reception. So they do something with energy. We just don't know exactly what else. But anything is a talisman. There's no magical one thing or the other. Your sea glass is an amazing talisman, and it does exactly what you just pointed out, which is relax the mind. I have vowed not to use the word hypnosis, because God forbid that gets out there somewhere that I'm a hypnotizer. That's not what's going on. But hypnosis is just a state of intense concentration. You know, we actually go into hypnosis all the time. I'm in hypnosis when I do the seeing, which is why I sound a little weird before and after, you know, because I'm just trying to be empty-minded about what I'm seeing. But yes, that's the experience.
We're so used to these days looking at a flat screen, and to look into a deeper crystal and at multiple levels, that helps. You know, it's
to remember three-dimensionality. Isn't it bizarre how that shows the three-dimensionality? And I'm like looking at all of you, I'm definitely perceiving having a group conversation. So anybody who wants to hop in, we want to do our 3 more introductions. Maybe we'll do our 3 more introductions and then open the floor, and folks who want to say something can then hop in.
Okay.
Nice.
Let's see, Courtney, how are you doing?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Courtney Cintron. I'm an arts administrator. My experience looking in the quartz, I started to kind of see synaptic connections, kind of like the brain. And so because it was kind of because it's in a globe shape, I was thinking about how we're all connecting right now, and kind of what the zeitgeist and the collective consciousness is doing. Also thinking about those frequencies that you're talking about, so love and fear, and thinking about how our personal frequencies can shift, can almost create a paradigm shift and influence those connections, right? So seeing you kind of shining that light on the globe made me think about how we all influence with our own energies, kind of on those connections.
Mute button. Connectivity is something that I feel or see into an awful lot. I see a lot of it. Yeah. Who will you hot potato?
I will hot potato to Cell.
Oh, her audio isn't on. Oh, there it is.
Oh, I was muted by host. That was weird. So it says Cell. Yeah, you know what? I keep changing it. So I have all these Zoom sessions and as different roles. So who knows? But this has really been so fruitful for me, this discussion. Very creative. I'm Sarah. And were we supposed to introduce ourselves a little bit? Anyway, I'm a writer primarily. I'm on disability, which is significant for right now because disability is much worse than usual. I'm waiting for hip surgery. I can hardly walk, and I don't really have anybody who's helping right now. I've been trying to hire people, but I've decided to try to see it as funny. I kept having people show up not at all observing COVID protocol. And my doctor had said, if you have anybody in at all, keep it to a minimum. And both of you were, you know, he gave a set of instructions for how to do this. I didn't make this shit up, you know, so, and I'm like, what, haven't you heard? 6 feet, you know, I'm off. That's not what I want to talk about. The words, I couldn't think of any words. And then I thought plague, and then I thought paralysis plague, procrastination. And I thought, why don't I do something all in P's? But anyway, I was thinking isolation, anger, but also creativity, ideas. We're talking about connection. And recently I was thinking of this quote by Jonathan Hari: the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. I also work with Smart Recovery. I lead sessions about, you know, using science-based tools to recover from addictions and stuff. And we're trying to do this online now. But I feel I live alone. It's been harder than usual, I have to say. It's really been harder than usual. I can't just go out for a walk. I mean, I need help getting out there, so. This sounds like I'm feeling sorry for myself, so I'd rather.
Oh, it doesn't at all. These are absolutely valid responses that you're having, and completely normal. I mean, everybody has got their version of something that's going terribly wrong, you know? And I'm so sorry to hear about your experience of it, truly.
Yeah.
But the thing that just grabs me, Sarah, is you are in control of your mind, and you are saying, I'm going to make it funny. And, you know, it's effective. It is a beautiful thing to do, because you clearly have not also forgotten the ways in which it is not funny and how you need to, you know, take care of yourself.
Right.
But to put the mind just on the station of happiness, of joy, of mirth.
Mirth, that's a good word.
is the first step to a huge energetic transition.
I love that, using that word. Actually, another word I had written down, if I had to choose one, is Tums.
Is what? I'm sorry?
Tums, you know, stuff your tongue.
Oh, you mean like
Antacid.
chewable? Oh, Tums.
This is a Tums moment. Yes.
Oh, you know, you run out of food and stuff. I'm spending most of my time trying to get food and stuff like that. It's just, it's so boring, you know? But
where are you located?
Huh?
Where are you located?
Oh, I'm in Hyde Park, South Side. I do have someone who helps me usually, but she wanted to stay. I have services through DHS. She wanted to stay home with her family, her grandkids and her daughter. And what am I going to say? Of course she should. So I'm in touch with great people. People are doing things. My Hood, let's see, My Hood, it's 3 M's. My Hood, My City, oh, My Block.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't say it right, but they're people doing wonderful things. I'm tired of talking about my disability stuff. I wish everything was in place. But one thing also, in the very beginning, Dana, you're talking, you have a soothing voice, and your pace was gentle, and you were using the crystal. I thought, this is it. This is so calming for me to listen to you, and I've never seen you before or anything. And I just started writing things down, like feeling unblocked or something. It was, and it's also being with people. Yeah.
A common experience.
Mm-hmm. Connectivity, connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I found interesting, as I always do with your work, Dana, is the fact that it is intrinsically connecting you with something else, that you leave the more you let your unconscious envelope into it, the more connections you start making, and it allows that wonderful thing that we all are looking for, inspiration, so that your own personality or your own artistic journey tends to jump in, and suddenly I'm looking in there and I'm seeing something that's speaking to me. And by you getting out of the way, and that's your soothing voice, and allowing ideas to come through, it then brings a person to another place. You're guiding us, but you're not controlling us. And I like that a lot.
Thanks for those reflections, truly. And I am hot potatoing the next. I see Rebecca Grace.
Oh, she's gone.
Oh, she's gone. That's a still photo. Okay, Courtney.
Yeah, sorry, that's still me.
Oh, okay, good. Hey.
I also went.
You went, yes.
Isn't gone yet.
I think everybody's gone on my screen.
Everybody gone then?
I think I'm the only one.
Trisha.
So thank you, Dana. This was beautiful. My word was uncertain in the beginning, and then it turned to, as Courtney said, it changed you changed the frequency to self-love. So that was the word, self-love. And then you asked, how do I want the world to be, or how do we want the world to be? And what can we do to our part? And so we are doing a show, an exhibition in our windows to address that same exact question. But then Arabella said that she doesn't want to go back to the world as it was, and do we need these things? And so then I'm torn. Like, we designed the show because it was something that we thought people needed, but do people need to do more? So that is a question. And someone said the paradigm shift, and I was in a Zoom talk earlier, and I heard this phrase, PPP, people powered paradigm shift. So I thought I'd
That's
also
awesome.
add that too.
Wow. One of the things I love most about working with you, Trisha, is you are so bold always in your perception. You're the idea that you would go from, let me tell them about the window show, to asking the question of yourself as somebody who puts things together for the community of what do people find necessary now? You know, that's exactly the kind of creative thinking is creative, because it makes the world. And it's funny, you're sitting in this, you've got this beautiful painting / drawing chalkboard graphic behind you, and it looks, you know, like it's growing out of you, and that kind of is how you work.
It's actually from our show, which is, Arabella saw it at the Cultural Center, which is how people arrived in the US across history. It was a show, it's Eugenia Chang's wall drawing to explain throughout time how people have arrived here in the US.
Yeah, I recognized it. It's such a great piece. But I do think that human beings really need art, though. But what I'm talking about, for example, I mean, there is some writing I do is, you know, to sustain myself is like kind of, you know, marketing copy, for example. Well, I feel that if all the marketing and publicity disappeared, you know, from the United States, all that whole aspect of things, it's billions of dollars, the world would be exactly just as well.
I'd be better.
You know, better. Like, all these people work for that, and it's their life, and so much money going into that. So yeah. But I do think we need art. We will need it more than ever.
actually.
I think the as an artist or aspiring artist, the part that's sort of frustrating about that is, you know, last year when we talked about the definition of art, we argued quite extensively about its role in the economy. And all of my classmates were like, we just want to be paid for what we do. And I'm like, no, don't you understand? The economy says what you do doesn't matter. And now nothing anybody does matters, right? Like, unless you're a nurse, like, we don't care what you do. So I feel like it's fine and we'll make art, but, you know, the culture will have to support it or we won't be able to do it.
The strange thing,
Agreed. Totally.
yeah,
Artists will continue to make art.
well, the thing about art that I always find interesting is there is a, you know, almost a duality between advertising and art. Art is the percolation of ideas from everyone. Advertising is the forcing down of ideas from one source. So having to deal with advertising all my life to promote whatever I'm doing, I am painfully aware how I'm forcing my point of view onto people so them to, you know, monetize whatever I do. And it feels a bit hypocritical in some ways. But at the same time, you know, the idea of not having advertising and suddenly art is its own means is a real idyllic kind of thought, which thank you for that. It's pretty grand.
Well, we can dream, but we can also do stuff. I mean, we're doing stuff right now, you know. This is technically an arts event.
I have to leave, everybody. Unfortunately, I have to go to another Zoom meeting. But I really enjoy being with you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but keep going.
Can you leave your horse?
What's that?
Can you leave your horse?
I leave my horse. I leave my horse and my owl.
Horse.
It's Gertrude Abercrombie piece, but it's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully I'll see you again online in the future at one of Trish's things.
I hope so too. Me too. Bye-bye.
Oh my goodness, I have to leave too. I just noticed the time. I have shrinkage, another Zoom appointment. So this has been totally wonderful.
So enjoyed listening to you and talking with you, and I hope to see you again.
Okay, thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
People are welcome to stay or go. The offer is open to keep the discussion going.
I'm cool.
How many people are in art groups right now besides this one? Really?
I'm not.
Yeah, different. I'm wondering if we're connecting with each other. I belong to two different groups right now who are seriously discussing what we're going to do in the future. And these things are spontaneously creating. Like, so when Dana invited me into this, I was like, whoa, is this something that is happening across? I mean, it's really awesome. Very, you know, I was just wondering if anybody else was in other groups.
My roommates do art. My actually one of my roommates runs or started an art gallery. But I told him I don't want to be that person that has got his art into the gallery because he knew the guy. I told him I want, you know, so, but eventually we've been talking about doing a show, but no, I feel so cut off from the people on the trains, to tell you the truth. I ride Blue Line all the way downtown, then out on the Brown or the Green Line out to Oak Park to work. And I enjoy having conversations with all kinds of strange people, and I'm missing that. The viewpoints, it's amazing. Yeah, the viewpoints you don't hear in the news, you know,
right.
The actual people is beautiful. Yeah.
Zach, do you find that in our new pandemic time that this Zoom meeting format, it's more effective in creating connection than maybe it was before?
I've never used Zoom before, but I really kind of appreciate this way of talking with people and maybe getting to know them better before, you know, you're bumping into them. You get to know their minds a little bit and stuff. I'm not sure. I like it.
Found, you know, I'm an artist, so I guess I'm just I'm fated to make stuff. But not only was I interested philosophically in the seeing and in our conversation happening over the computers, but also interested in what that aspect could add to the art and what it gives here. And so here's one thing it gives. I'm not looking directly at the stone when I'm doing an online scene. I'm looking at the same screen that you're looking at, that all of us are looking at. And so if you're in the room with me, you're sitting across the table, I see my side of the crystal, and you probably aren't even really aware of what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
This way I can show you exactly what I'm looking at, and we see the same thing, which seems to me might help create some sort of
Connection.
thought connection. Or I mean, I'm the most skeptical new age energy person there is. It sounds hokey to me, but honestly, I've been living it on, you know. Like,
I didn't even know there was a competition.
But, you know, but why do I do it? Why do I talk about it? Why do I, you know, maybe.
Going back to the advertising and all that, one thought I had when I started doing photography more and more with the cell phone is that photography is taking somebody by the ears and saying, look right here. And if you're in the same room, you can't do that. Well, maybe you can, but this you can't. You can frame what you want them to see and understand in the image.
Yeah. I love the two veins of conversation that we have going on about what's happening in art and the artist's mind, but also in this idea that Arabella introduced of what if it's radically different when we go back? What would be different? You know, are any of you having thoughts on changes you might make in your own lives?
I think for me, we all knew that something was wrong with capitalism, you know? And what I was doing right before the pandemic was awesome, but it was kind of like an overdrive. Like I couldn't keep doing that forever, or I would have to sort of rearrange a lot of things to make it happen. And honestly, for me, like I'm being reminded of like when I was a kid in the 90s before cell phones, and you just like sat around and looked at clouds, you know, and you weren't trying to win anything, you just were.
There you go.
And that, you know, and then like if your house is on fire, the main point is to get out alive, right? And later you say, okay, what about my passport? What about the family photographs? You know, so I feel like with COVID as humanity, our main point is to get out alive. And after that, we have an opportunity to rebuild something. But also this idea of like, we won't get over this. This isn't a bone that you reset. This is like like you don't have the house anymore. You know, like what do you do? So I think we have an opportunity. I don't know how much it will be able to be leveraged.
Well, but when I think about those kinds of situations in my life, I find it helpful to ask myself the question, what can I actually do today towards that? You know, and sometimes it's a really tiny gesture or thing, but it's something. you know, adding action to it.
I had a question about your seeing, and one question, if you would have used a different, like you had the 3 different, do you feel you would have seen something different? And then the other question is, I know you often forget what you say, but so that's why I wrote it in the chat. And the last thing you said was reflect on the self, remember who you are. Do you use the crystals yourself to remember who you are? Because I think, like people have said, Zach and Arabella and Joe have all mentioned about advertising. I think advertising often encourages people to not remember, to want to be something else, or want to be, to live some other way. How do you remember who you are?
Oh my gosh.
How do you, or how do you use the crystals, or could you have used a different crystal? Like, is there one crystal that, is there magic to that?
So, wow. Well, there's 15 really great questions, but no, there's no magical power to that crystal. I mean, other than whatever it does with energy, it does it well. And crystals do something with energy, we know that. But it's not about the thing, because yes, I remember myself when using the crystals, but then also in other things, in just the way the world looks, or in the light art that I do, or, you know, other people's artwork, or, because it's not what I'm seeing, it's how I'm seeing it. But like I just was mentioning with Rebecca, action behind what I want to create is it's a building block for experience. And so now your third question was the one I wanted to focus attention on. Can you remind me, what is the third one? How do you remember self? Right. How do you remember who you are?
Yeah.
So the one line answer that we could all go home with, myself included, because I'm never saying anything that I'm not also learning, is by forgetting all of the other selves, all of the selves we think we are that are not really ourselves. So I think one thing that the quarantine has done for us, and also just smacking us into a different sort of attention, just by the shock of what's going on, allows us to take a step back and say, well, you know, I might be a salesperson, but am I a salesperson now? Or, you know, or how am I an instructor now? Or how am I, you know? And what these questions show us is the distance we have from those roles, and the agency we have in the roles that we take on, you know, because we get here into the middle of life and it's like, oh, I'm just doing it, that must be me. But we can make changes. And so how to remember the self is, yeah, there's something mystically about it, in that introspection is not, like art, valued in the economy-driven world outside the window. But introspection is oh so important. It's the entire other half of the collective creation, you know? And so be true to thyself, to thine own self be true, is an old idea. I'm not saying something radical or new. Maybe it's radical, but it's really not new.
Thank you.
We could get to know ourselves through rational exercises. There are books that nurture creativity. There are, you know, countless sorts of retreats and things that we could read and do and reflect to find out about ourselves personality-wise. So those things are helpful in the crafting of our own lives, but in a different way of remember who you really are. Remember that you're none of those things. I'm none of these roles. Those roles are like almost like amusement park rides for an energy that courses through me and each of us. This thing that we call the soul or the life spark is out. It would be, we would still be ourselves with the same life spark, whether we were a, you know, bookbinder or a bootmaker or a panhandler. It just, we would be our same selves. And so this thing is above that. And so we can simply remember that we are that divine spark.
I forget who said it, but I find it really fascinating that you are a soul and you have a body. And my body is always fighting like a horse, you know. I'm like, hey, go over here. And at times we run together fine. You know?
Yeah, the body is a rental unit. They don't really last. They don't make them like they used to. Didn't Moses to be like 800 or something? Does anybody have any questions?
You mentioned that you're a skeptic. So how did you get into all this?
I'll try and be brief. Intuitively, I always gravitated towards exploring my own personal energy and other people's personal energy. And so as a child, these were things like I was interested in the Ouija board. And, you know, I became interested in Reiki. So I was kind of the friend who would read your cards, or, you know, I wrote the horoscope for the high school newspaper entirely just to have something on my resume, but then actually turned around, I liked it. Yeah. So just continuing on those sorts of lines. And then also I have, since I was 17 years old, I have been a member of a 12-step program for family of alcoholics. And it is essentially a spiritual program, which is not to say it's in the least bit religious, but it also looks towards this divine spark energy that I'm referring to here. And having started that so young, it was probably a leg up on being able to feel into life a little bit that way. And so I was doing all these sorts of things, and the more I worked with the stones and the more I talked with people and just serendipitously met other people who shared these interests or whatever, I just, something in me just sort of naturally cultivated, separately and apart from any studio art that I was doing, because that was another me. And I met Trisha at the exact moment of the convergence of my energy stuff going really well and getting really exciting in new ways, kind of gaining momentum just for me and the people I shared it with in my personal life. And then also my artwork that I made, reaching a point where it was ready for something else. And I put them together kind of on almost a dare. I mean, it was a challenge in a professional artist development group that was great. It was the Hyde Park Art Center program, which I cannot say enough good stuff about. And Trisha was a guest curator there. And you were like moderator or something that year, I think, Trisha. But that's when I put the energy work into the fine art, or the fine art into the energy work, or I melded them. And because I already had comfort with presenting things to the public as a fine artist, it's less uncomfortable for me to present this energy work in this sort of a format. And, you know, there's a lot of other stuff that I might do energy-wise, energy work-wise. It's not only the crystal for me, but the crystal is what seems to really, and maybe because of whatever its energetic transmission properties are, right? But when I have the crystal and I am meeting people, individuals out there in the world, and now a collective, because I feel definitely that I successfully went into or was viewing the collective energy rather than any one of our particular energies. So, I mean, thank you all for putting yourselves into it earnestly as well. But I used the crystal for this one thing. And I'm uncertain too. I mean, it's risky for me to put this out there, but it's also, it makes me feel great. It energizes me. It seems to be received well, and it just makes me feel good. And, you know, my greatest hope here, like the what would ring the bell, what would be a successful one of these here Zoom collective crystal seeings, is for just the seed of, or the beginning of a shift in everybody's personal energy, just in your own lives, a little bit of a shift towards your divine spark, towards joy, just a tiny anything, even if it's just getting the kind of tea that you like delivered to your door. I'm a masked and gloved person. That success would be for us to reimagine what we are doing, see what we are doing differently, so that we can honor parts of what it is to be human and what it is to be in society with the way that we build society. Rethinking and reimagining what needs to be here, right? So maybe acknowledgement of, if not divine spark, then let's bring back the idea of know thyself. You know, let's just like we teach physical education, let's teach mental health education.
Oh, that'd be nice.
I mean, come on, dude, we are all in therapy for like years after grade school. And if they just taught us a little breathing and mindfulness, we might have been better. Come on, the thing we have to do is go out there and be mentally capable, and they don't teach mental education. And I'm not joking, like I think it would be really helpful. So
I think that's the stress point right now for a lot of families. You know, you're seeing people who are actually being alone with themselves, trying, or with a family, or with their important other, and I from some of my psychiatrist friends saying they've never been busier and it's never been more tense.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, my heart goes out to people in domestic situations that are untenable by now.
People are realizing that they're not online and just call somebody an idiot. They have to actually talk with this person and try to understand what they're doing.
So I lived in New Zealand for a while, and in 2010, 2011, they had an earthquake that basically took out the downtown of the third largest city in the country.
Wow.
And that took a long time to recover from. But then at like one of the very last dominoes was the mental health crisis.
Oh.
And they were still like, what are we in 2020, you know? And they're still attempting to advocate for mental health assistance in that region. And I think there's a wonderful little book that talks about if a person's in crisis and you have a problem, direct it away from the person in crisis, right? So don't ask the person with a broken arm, will you help me lift this thing? Get someone else to do it. But the hard thing here is like everybody, like nobody's like free from this, Mm-hmm. There isn't that vacation island we can go to right now. Mm-hmm. But I think that doesn't erase the actual discrepancies, like I have a safe home. Mm-hmm. Other people don't, yeah, so I don't know where that was going, but
I thought it was incredibly valuable because the strange thing is that I'd gone through a bad disease, and I got into mindfulness and meditation, and I feel without those tools going into now, I would have been a complete wreck. So even as you were presenting the crystal, I realized that all of that merges into this inner discovery process that if you don't have the tools to be able to do it is almost you're at a disadvantage. The one thing that's great about being an artist is that those inner travels, those inner journeys are very valuable to you. I mean, they are what you're about, basically. I wonder, and I think those tools that you're presenting, have, scope beyond here with other artists, because I think everybody needs these tools, and especially in the mental health side, mindfulness. Oh my God, I'm so glad I know what that means.
Oh my God, I know. Thank you for the compliments. I mean, the best thing I think anyone can do is show others wellness by being well. There's no talking anyone into wellness, and there's certainly no talking the self into wellness, but just like one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, being as well as possible. And I'm talking mostly about mental wellness, doing what I can to fix what's wrong and make it smoother going forward. Just that kind of thing is contagious too. When you talk to a person who is feeling calm, you feel calm. When you talk to somebody who's freaking out, there's a freak out feeling, and so when we remember who we really are and how much agency we really have and how we feel about something, it's really, really easy to tune perspective. So some easy, quick tricks. A gratitude list is the simplest and most effective way to switch the mind over to the joy station, right? You do not have to be ecstatic. You do not have to experience transcendent religious joy in order to access the joy station. You really can watch a situation comedy if you need to chuckle. or make a gratitude list, or simply do something for someone else and that helps them, and don't let them find out about it. This becomes like an obsessive game. And these are all, you know, they sound so selfless, Mother Teresa like. In fact, they are also selfish. I feel much better in a positive frame of mind, you know, and it's just like, here we are all, you know, myself included, because it's not like I'm somehow fearless. We're all like super progressed way down the tracks on how to develop fear as a way of living and thinking and analyzing. What am I afraid of? What is there to fear? But, you know, like our whole notion of where we are in reality is like on a model of fear. And that's optional. We can go through our lives on a model of love. And yep, it's going to cause us to do things that don't look like an exact fit over in the fear model. That doesn't make them any less valid. So when we talk about building a new world, what are we going to make? You know, there doesn't have to be an apocalyptic destruction with aliens and stuff. We just have to go back to work, go back to our own lives, be in our lives today in ways that bring us joy, that bring others joy. Just change the station over to joy. Even if it's like a world of shit and you only get 10 seconds of joy in a day, do it. Right? Because it's like an accretion, a critical mass.
I have to mention that was beautiful, but I was looking at all the different shots and the mise en scene that is going on in everybody's pictures is absolutely amazing. The shark over your head is, I wonder what that means. I see a map and it seems like a guide to something. Does that speak to you of something? Does that mean something? You have this little organic thing coming down from your right hand side, and then I think it's a lamp, but the glow is on the other side of the lamp, and I'm wondering, how does she do it? Is it some sort of angel power? My God. And then the last one, the 1618 North, my God, you have Slave there with all these tendrils coming out. I wonder how complex that mind is.
My shark, I live on Lawrence, and I get off at the Kedzie station, and I'm walking along. There's this little Hispanic lady with all these balloons, and she had one that was a blue shark, and I was like, for $3, it was awesome. I was walking in the stores and bumping people with it. This is 3 years ago. You know, it was fun. It made people laugh, and every time I look up at it, I think, yeah, her breath is in there.
If it was 3 years ago, how come it's still up there? Is it affixed to your wall?
I tied a string around it and just put it up there. After like the first week I got it, it's been fine.
Cool. Well, Tricia, thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you very much, Dana. This was wonderful. Thank you all for staying the course and giving us amazing insight and tools.
Well, I hope we have another one of these in the future. We can tune in. And my website is danamajor.com, which I say because there's a email me button in there. You can reach me that way if you wanted to contact me.
I'm just sharing that right now.
Great.
This has been very good for me because whoops, am I talking? Oh, okay. This has been very good for me because you brought up some words, Dana. Words that I haven't heard in a long time, and they just help you think about things differently. There's the one saying, Brahma is the illusion, Nirvana is the realization of the illusion. You know, so when you talk about mirth, I was like, wow, I haven't even thought about. That's true. That's true. We gotta, think along those lines instead of wallowing in the pain we've had or something.
Yeah, the mind works better on topics like that. It just does. Does anybody else have any like closing remarks on maybe shifts or takeaways?
Can't wait to see where this evolves to. I think
Yeah.
you've just started, and I think that it has, you know, as it with every technique, you're now a time-based artist, and taking that crystal and what you're going to do with it to accentuate the beginnings is going to be pretty amazing. I can't wait to see it in a year.
Wow, thank you, Joe. And just in this tiny public setting, let me acknowledge that the whole entire reason that I use LED lights, light emitting diodes, is because of Joe Jensen, who does theater, and I was doing a project with him and he showed me those kinds of lights, and then everything else came along.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Everybody be well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. Thanks, Trisha. That was terrific.
That was great. Thank you.
I'd love to do another one. So when
Yeah, I was thinking, let me stop the recording.
Okay.